Beneath the silver canopy of the elderwood, Lyra watched the stars bleed. Her bare feet pressed into moss that glowed faintly with every breath of wind, and the air smelled of rain that had not yet fallen. Around her, the trees stood taller than mountains, their bark etched with runes older than memory. This place was hidden from human eyes, shielded by layers of illusion and time. Only those born of the old blood could find it. Only those with silence in their hearts could stay. Her dragon, Kale, lay coiled beside her, his massive form resting like a shadow given shape. His scales were black as cooled lava, but when the moonlight caught them just right, they shimmered with hints of violet and deep green. He did not sleep. Dragons never truly slept. One golden eye remained half open, fixed on the sky as if expecting something to fall from it. Lyra lifted a hand, fingers tracing the curve of the runestone hanging from her neck. It pulsed softly, warm against her skin. For weeks it had been restless, humming at odd hours, growing hot when no danger was near. She had tried to ignore it, but tonight, the hum had become a scream. Above, the stars were wrong. They still shone. Yes, but their light bent in strange ways, as if seen through cracked glass. Patches of the sky flickered like old film, revealing glimpses of something beyond. Cold metal, sharp angles, silent movement. The veil was thinning, and whatever was on the other side was coming closer. Kale shifted, his tail curling tighter around her. A low rumble vibrated through his chest. Not quite a growl, more like a warning wrapped in worry. Lyra placed a hand on his side, feeling the heat radiating through his scales. She did not need words. They had not spoken in human tongues for years. Their bond ran deeper than language. She stood, brushing moss from her tunic. It was woven from spider silk and moonlight. Silver thread stitched in patterns that shifted with her mood. Tonight the threads were dark, coiled tight like storm clouds. She walked to the edge of the clearing, where the elderwood met the void. Beyond the trees, the world ended. Not in a cliff or a wall, but in nothingness. A smooth, seamless fade into blank air. This was the boundary, the last line between the hidden and the seen, and there in the distance 3 points of light moved against the stars. Not stars, not comets. Too steady, too fast. Lyra's breath caught. She had seen ships before. Human satellites, clumsy and bright, tumbling through the sky like lost birds. But these were different. They cut through the darkness with purpose, silent and sharp. Their hulls reflected no light, yet they left trails of distortion as if space itself recoiled from their passage. Kale rose behind her, wings unfolding with a sound like tearing silk. He did not roar. He did not need to. His presence alone made the air heavier, the ground firmer. Lyra reached into the pouch at her belt and pulled out a small crystal. Clear as ice, she whispered a single word. Old, soft, almost forgotten, and the crystal flared to life. Images bloomed inside it. Not pictures, but feelings, intentions, fear, anger, hunger, and beneath it all a name. Ashborn. Her stomach twisted. The Ashborn had been gone for over 200 years, exiled for trying to burn the human cities during the last great convergence. They believed humanity was a plague, a mistake that needed cleansing. The Council had banished them beyond the rim, into the dead zones between galaxies. No one had heard from them since. Yet here they were, returning, and they were heading straight for Earth. Lyra turned and ran. Her feet barely touched the ground as she wove through the elderwood, Kale gliding above her in silent arcs. The forest blurred around her, branches parting as if bowing. She did not slow until she reached the Heartstone, a massive, smooth rock at the center of the enclave pulsing with soft blue light. This was where messages were sent, where warnings were carved into the bones of the world. She pressed both hands against its surface and closed her eyes. Memories poured out of her, images of the ships, the distortion in the sky, the Ashborn sigil flickering in the crystal's glow. The Heartstone absorbed them, then pulsed once hard, sending the warning rippling through every hidden grove, every sleeping watcher, every dragon curled in mountain caves across the hidden realms. Within minutes, lights began to appear in the trees. Figures emerged from the shadows, tall, pale eyes wide with alarm. They did not speak. They did not need to. They had all felt it. The veil trembling, the balance breaking. Among them stepped Elder Marin, her silver hair braided with starlight, her staff topped with a shard of comet ice. She looked at Lyra, then at Kale, then up at the bleeding sky. "They are not supposed to be here," Marin said, voice low and rough like stone grinding against stone. They are not just here, Lyra replied. They are going to Earth. A murmur passed through the gathered elves. Some clenched their fists, others turned away as if the very idea pained them. Earth was not their world. It had not been for centuries. After the Great Retreat, the Council had sworn never to interfere again. Humans were to be left alone, to rise or fall by their own hands. But the Ashborn had never accepted that. Do they know? Marin asked. Lyra shook her head. Not yet. But if those ships reach the atmosphere, they will, and by then it will be too late. Kale landed beside her with a soft thud, his wings folding like a cloak. He lowered his head, nudging Lyra's shoulder gently. She leaned into him, drawing strength from his warmth. I have to go, she said. You cannot, Marin said sharply. The Council forbids it. If you show yourself, if you interfere, you break the oldest law. And if I do nothing, Earth burns, Lyra shot back, and with it every chance we ever had to make things right. Silence fell. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then from the edge of the crowd, a young elf named Torin stepped forward. He held out a small device, a human-made radio scavenged years ago and kept as a curiosity. I've been listening, he said, to their broadcasts, their music, their news. They don't know we exist. They think they're alone in the universe. He looked at Lyra, eyes wide with something like hope. But they're kind. Even when they fight each other, they still build hospitals. They still send help when storms come. They still look up at the stars and wonder. Lyra took the radio. It was warm in her hands, humming with faint static. She turned it on. A voice came through, soft, tired but steady. A woman speaking about planting trees in a city park, about giving kids a place to play, about believing in tomorrow. Lyra's throat tightened. They don't deserve this, she whispered. Marin studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Go, she said, but do not reveal yourself. Do not speak their tongue unless you must, and do not let them see Kale. Lyra nodded. I won't. And if the Ashborn see you? Marin asked. Then they'll remember why they feared us, Lyra said, her voice quiet but firm. Kyle bent low, offering his back. Lyra climbed onto his shoulders, gripping the ridges along his neck. With a powerful beat of his wings, they rose into the air, leaving the Elderwood behind. Below, the elves watched in silence as dragon and rider vanished into the bleeding sky. Hours later, Lyra stood on a rocky ridge in Northern California, far from any human trail. Kyle lay hidden in a nearby cave, his presence masked by ancient wards she had woven into the stone. The night was cold, the wind sharp with the scent of pine and distant ocean. She held the crystal again. It showed her the ships now, 3 of them cutting through the outer edges of the solar system. They would reach Earth in less than 2 days, and they were broadcasting not in Elven, not in any language she knew, but in broken fragments of human speech, twisted and cold. Target confirmed. Origin point Earth. Cleanse protocol initiated. No survivors. Lyra's hands shook, not from fear, from rage. She had spent her life believing the Council was right, that humans were fragile, chaotic, too loud and too fast. But now, faced with the truth, that someone would destroy them without even knowing them, she felt something shift inside her. A line drawn in the sand, a choice made. She pulled out a small folded map Torin had given her. On it, marked in careful ink, was a location, a quiet town near Mount Shasta. A place where a botanist named Maya lived, a woman who, years ago, had seen an elven scout during a forest fire and had not screamed, had not run, had simply said, "You're real." Lyra did not know why Torin had mentioned her, but something in her gut told her Maya was important. As dawn began to color the eastern sky, Lyra started walking. Behind her, Kale watched the stars and waited. The High Council convened in the hollow moon, a place carved from the heart of a dead satellite long forgotten by human astronomers. Its walls shimmered with veins of living crystal, pulsing softly with the memories of every decision ever made within. The air was still, heavy with the weight of centuries. No wind dared enter here. No sound dared rise uninvited. Lyra stood alone in the center of the chamber, her boots leaving no mark on the polished obsidian floor. Kale waited outside, coiled around the entrance like a living seal. Dragons were not permitted inside council chambers. Too wild, too honest, but his presence pressed against the stone like a silent vow. Around her, the council sat in a wide circle, their thrones grown from ancient roots that twisted up from the moon's core. They wore robes woven from starlight and silence, their faces calm, unreadable, Only their eyes moved, watching her with the stillness of predators who had already decided the outcome of the hunt. Counselor Vela was the first to speak. Her voice was smooth, sharp, like glass dragged over ice. "You broke the veil," she said. "You left the Elderwood. You entered human territory, and you brought your dragon with you." Lyra did not flinch. "I saw the Ashborn ships," she replied. "They are heading for Earth. They wear our sigils. They speak in our tongue, and they plan to burn the planet to ash." A ripple passed through the chamber. Some elders shifted. Others closed their eyes as if in pain. "Proof," Elder Marin said from the far side of the circle. Her voice was softer than Vela's, but carried more weight. She leaned forward, her comet-ice staff glowing faintly. "Show us." Lyra reached into her tunic and pulled out the crystal. It pulsed once in her palm, then floated upward, hovering at chest height. Light spilled from it, forming images in the air. Ships cutting through the void. Hulls marked with the Ashborn crest. A burning tree wrapped in chains. Then came sound. Distorted, cold, but unmistakably elven. Target confirmed. Origin point Earth. Cleanse protocol initiated. No survivors. The words hung in the air like smoke. Counselor Vela scoffed. "Anyone can mimic our speech. Forge our symbols. This proves nothing but panic." "It proves they are using our resonance cores," Lyra said, her voice steady. "Those ships should not be able to cross the veil. Only elven tech can pierce the boundary layers, and only someone with bloodline access could activate them." Silence. Then Elder Marin spoke again. "The Ashborn were exiled with nothing. No weapons, no ships, no cores. They found something out there," Lyra said. "Something worse than us. And now they're using it to frame Earth." "Frame?" Vela laughed, a dry, brittle sound. "Why would they do that?" "Because they want the Council to join them," Lyra said. "They know you'll never attack Earth on your own. But if you believe humans started the war, if you think they reached into our realms and struck first, you'll act. You'll burn them before they can strike again." The chamber grew colder. Elder Marin's eyes darkened. She remembered the last time the Ashborn spoke of cleansing. It had ended in blood, betrayal, and the exile of nearly 100 souls. Among them, Lyra's sister, Cirrus. "You speak as if you know their plan," Vela said, narrowing her eyes. "As if you've spoken to them." Lyra hesitated. Just for a breath. But it was enough. "You have," Vela pressed, rising from her throne. "You've been in contact with the Ashborn. That's why you ran. Not to warn us. To cover your tracks." "That's not true," Lyra said, but the doubt had already taken root. "Then why were you seen near Mount Shasta?" Vela asked. "Why did you seek out a human?" Lyra's stomach dropped. "They had been watching. I needed information," she said. "The Ashborn left a trail. A signal buried in human networks. Only someone who understood both worlds could follow it. And this human," Vela sneered. "This Maya. What is she to you?" "Nothing," Lyra said. "Just someone who once saw truth and didn't look away." Elder Marin raised a hand and Vela fell silent, though her glare remained. "The Council will deliberate," Marin said. "You will remain here until we decide your fate." Lyra bowed her head. She knew better than to argue, but as the elders began to whisper among themselves, she let her mind drift. Not to fear, but to memory. She remembered Cirrus, not as the Ashborn leader, but as the girl who used to braid starlight into Lyra's hair, who laughed louder than anyone in the Elderwood, who cried when the first human city lit up the night sky, not from hatred but from grief. "They're so bright," Cirrus had whispered, "but they don't even know we're here." That was the tragedy. The Ashborn didn't hate humans for what they were. They hated them for what they could have been, for the alliance that never happened, the friendship that was never offered. And now, Cirrus was using that grief as fuel. Outside, Kale shifted. Lyra felt it through their bond, a warning. Something was coming. Before she could speak, the chamber trembled, not from within. From above, alarms, silent but felt in the bones, rippled through the hollow moon. The crystal in the center of the room flared red. New images appeared. Not from Lyra's memory. From the outer sentinels, Earth's orbit. Ashborn ships had arrived, but they were not alone. Human defenses had activated. Not weapons, there were none that could reach this far, but signals. Thousands of them, broadcasting on every frequency. Not threats, messages, music, voices, a child reading a poem, a scientist explaining the stars. A song about coming home. The humans did not know they were under attack. but they were reaching out anyway. In the chamber, the elders stared, stunned. "They think it's first contact," Elder Marin whispered. "No," Lyra said, heart pounding. "They think someone is listening. And they're trying to say hello." Vela's face twisted. "Fools. They'll get themselves killed, or they'll show us who they really are," Lyra said. Then, a new signal cut through the others. Sharp. Cold. Elven. It came from the lead Ashborn ship, and it bore Lyra's voice. Not her real voice. A copy. Twisted, angry, full of venom. "Tell the council I've done what they were too weak to do," the fake voice said. "Earth is ours now." And I led the way. The chamber went still. All eyes turned to Lyra. She felt the weight of their judgment like a blade against her throat. "Didn't say that," she whispered, "but it sounds like you," Vela said. Every tone. Every pause. Only someone with your blood could forge that. Elder Marin studied Lyra for a long moment. Then she turned to the others. "The Ashborn have always been clever, but this is personal." Lyra stepped forward. "Let me go to the ship. Let me face Cirrus. If I can reach her even for a moment, I can stop this." "And if you join her," Vela asked. "Then kill me," Lyra said. "But if you do nothing, Earth dies and we become the monsters they always feared." No one spoke. Outside, Kale roared, a deep, rolling sound that shook the moon's crust. Not in anger. In urgency. The elders exchanged glances. Centuries of caution warred with the raw truth unfolding before them. Finally, Elder Marin stood. "You will go," she said, "but you will carry a binding thread. If you stray from your oath, if you raise a hand against Earth or speak for the Ashborn, the thread will sever your life force." Lyra nodded. "I accept, and the human," Vela said. Maya, she must be silenced. She knows too much. "No," Lyra said sharply. "She stays. She's the only one who might understand what's coming." For a moment, Vela looked ready to argue, but Elder Marin raised her staff. "The human remains untouched," Marin declared. "This is not our way. Not anymore." The decision was made. As the council dispersed, Lyra walked to the entrance. Kale rose to meet her, his eyes burning with quiet fire. She placed a hand on his snout, feeling the warmth of his breath. "They think I betrayed them," she said softly. Kale rumbled, low and steady. He had never doubted her. Together, they left the hollow moon. Soaring into the black below, Earth turned, unaware but not for long. As they flew, Lyra activated the binding thread, a thin silver cord that wrapped around her wrist, humming with ancient magic. It would obey the council's will, not hers. If she failed, it would end her. But if she succeeded, it might just save 2 worlds. Her mind turned to Maya, the botanist who planted trees in broken places, who believed in quiet kindness, who had once looked at an elven scout and said, "You're real." As if she had been waiting her whole life to hear it, Lyra hoped she would get to say it again. Because soon, the sky would burn, and someone had to be ready to catch the light. On a rain-lashed ridge in Colorado, Lyra found Maya. The storm had rolled in fast. Thick clouds swallowing the peaks, wind howling through the pines like a warning. Lyra stood at the edge of a small wooden porch. Hood pulled low, water dripping from her sleeves. She had not slept in 2 days. Her eyes were tired but sharp. Kale waited in the trees behind her, hidden beneath a cloak of mist and old magic. The cabin was modest, built from reclaimed wood and glass, surrounded by wildflowers that glowed faintly under the porch lights. Inside, a figure moved, calm, unhurried. Maya. She wore a faded green sweater, her dark hair tied back in a loose braid. She was watering a row of seedlings on the windowsill, humming softly to herself. Lyra stepped forward and knocked. Maya turned. For a moment she froze, then recognition flickered in her eyes. Not fear, not surprise, just quiet understanding. She opened the door. "You came back," she said, voice soft as falling leaves. Lyra nodded. "I need your help." Maya did not ask why. She stepped aside and let her in. The cabin smelled of pine resin, dried herbs, and warm bread. A fire crackled in the stone hearth. On the table sat a radio, its dials glowing faintly. It was tuned to a frequency Lyra recognized, the same one the Ashborn had hijacked. "You've been listening?" Lyra said. Maya nodded. "Something's wrong. The signals changed 3 nights ago." Voices cut out, replaced by static, and something else, like whispers in a language that hurts to hear. Lyra sat at the table, pulling the crystal from her tunic. It pulsed weakly, drained from the journey. She placed it on the wood. "Show her," she whispered. The crystal brightened. Images rose into the air. Ashborn ships, burning skies, the fake message in Lyra's voice. Maya watched without flinching. When it ended, she simply said, "They're trying to make it look like you started this." "Yes," Lyra said. "And if the Council believes it, they'll join the attack. Earth won't survive a war with both of us." Maya walked to a shelf and pulled down a thick notebook filled with sketches, coordinates, and notes in neat handwriting. For weeks, she'd been tracking anomalies, energy spikes near Mount Shasta, strange echoes and seismic readings, radio bursts that didn't match any known source. She pointed to a map pinned to the wall. "Here," she said, "something's buried under the mountain, deeper than any mine, deeper than magma." Lyra studied the markings. Her blood ran cold. It was an old gate, one of the first ever built by the elves, long before the retreat, sealed after the last war, forgotten by everyone except the Ashborn. "They're using it," Lyra said, "to anchor their resonance core. If they activate it from inside the Earth, the shockwave will tear the planet apart, and it'll look like a human weapon backfired." Maya's face paled, but her hand stayed steady. "How long do we have? Less than a day," Lyra said. Without another word, Maya packed a satchel, water, dried fruit, a handheld scanner, a coil of climbing rope. She grabbed a jacket and turned off the lights. "Let's go." They drove through the storm in an old electric truck, tires crunching on wet gravel. Kale followed from above, invisible in the clouds. Lyra sat in the passenger seat watching the road blur past. She had expected hesitation, doubt, fear. But Maya drove with quiet focus, as if this were just another field trip. "Why aren't you afraid?" Lyra asked. Maya glanced at her. "Because someone has to believe in you, and if I don't, who will?" Lyra looked away. The words settled deep. By dawn, they reached the base of Mount Shasta. The mountain loomed like a sleeping giant, snow dusting its shoulders, mist curling around its base. Maya parked near a trailhead marked closed for repairs. They hiked for hours, climbing through pine forests and rocky slopes until they reached a cave hidden behind a waterfall. "This is it," Maya said. The entrance was sealed with a stone door covered in vines, but Lyra saw the truth beneath, the runes, elven, ancient, and recently disturbed. She placed her hand on the stone. It recognized her blood. With a low groan, the door slid open, revealing a tunnel that spiraled down into darkness. Inside, the air was dry and cold. The walls glowed with faint bioluminescent moss, casting long shadows. Every step echoed. Kale could not follow. The passage was too narrow, the magic too dense. He would wait outside, guarding the entrance. They descended for what felt like miles. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became. The crystal in Lyra's hand grew warm, then hot. They were close. Finally, they reached a vast chamber. In its center stood a massive ring of black stone, etched with pulsing silver lines. The old gate. And beside it, a console made of fused bone and metal. Elven tech, twisted with something darker. Wires snaked from it into the earth, feeding power into the core. On the console screen, a countdown glowed. 18 hours. "They're already inside," Lyra whispered. Maya moved to the console, pulling out her scanner. It beeped wildly. "This isn't just a bomb," she said. "It's a broadcast tower. Once it fires, it'll send a pulse across the planet, disguised as a human signal. The Council will see it as proof." Lyra's mind raced. There was only one way to stop it. Someone had to enter the gate, go to the Ashborn ship in orbit, and shut down the core from the source. But the gate required a blood key, and only 2 elves had that key, Lyra and Saris. "I have to go through," Lyra said. Maya looked at her. "Alone I can't take you. The gate rejects non-elven life. You'd be torn apart." "Then how do I help stay here?" Lyra said. "Guard the console. If the countdown speeds up, smash the main relay. It's the red node on the left. It won't stop the blast, but it'll delay it." Maya nodded. "I'll hold the line." Lyra stepped toward the gate. The runes flared to life, responding to her presence. Light swirled in the center, forming a tunnel of stars and shadow. She took a deep breath. Before she stepped through, Maya touched her arm. "Come back," she said. Lyra met her eyes. "I will." Then she walked into the light. The gate twisted space like a knot pulled tight. One moment she was in the mountain. The next she was floating in the void, surrounded by silence. The Ashborn flagship loomed ahead. A jagged spear of black metal, its hull scarred with battle and pride. Docking arms reached for her, sensing her bloodline. She landed on the bridge. It was empty. Too empty. Then a voice echoed from the shadows. "You always were sentimental, sister." Siri stepped into the light. She looked older, harder. Her silver hair was cropped short, her eyes ringed with dark lines. She wore armor forged from the bones of fallen dragons, and a cloak stitched with the ashes of burned cities. Real or imagined? Lyra couldn't tell. "You're not really going to destroy Earth?" Lyra said. Our anti-Cirrus smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. They had a chance. Centuries to grow, to reach out, to find us. But they never did. They built weapons instead of bridges, lies instead of truth. "That's not fair," Lyra said. "They didn't even know we existed." "And whose fault is that?" Ceres snapped. "We watched them suffer, starve, kill each other, and we did nothing. The council called it wisdom. I call it cowardice." Lyra stepped closer. "So you'll kill billions to prove a point?" "I'll save the galaxy from repeating our mistake," Ceres said. "Better one world dies than all of them fall to chaos." "You're not saving anyone," Lyra said. "You're just angry." For a moment Ceres wavered. Her hand trembled near the control panel. Then she straightened. "It's too late for talk. The core is primed. The council has already seen the fake signal. They think you're with me." "I'm not," Lyra said. "And neither are you." "Not really?" She reached into her tunic and pulled out a small vial, filled with water from the elderwood, blessed by Elder Marin before she left. It shimmered with pure memory. She threw it at the console. The liquid spread like fire, burning away the ash-born corruption. Alarms blared. The core flickered. "What did you do?" Ceres shouted. "I showed it the truth," Lyra said. Images flooded the ship's screens, not of war, but of Earth. Children planting trees, doctors healing the sick, strangers sharing food after a storm, Maya standing guard in a mountain cave waiting. Ceres stared. Her breath came fast. "No, that's not real." "It's a trick. It's real," Lyra said. "And if you destroy it, you destroy the last hope we have." For the first time in years, Ceres looked lost. Outside the ship, Kyle roared, a sound that shook the stars. The battle was coming, and Lyra knew she had only minutes left. She turned to the core. If she could hold it long enough, Maya could finish the job from below, but Ceres stepped in front of her. "You don't get to be the hero, sister," she whispered. Then she pressed a button. The gate behind Lyra collapsed, trapping her on the ship. Far below, in the mountain, Maya heard the change in the hum. The countdown jumped. 12 hours. She picked up a rock and got to work. Ashborn cruisers tore through the upper atmosphere, their hulls black against the pale gold of morning. They moved without sound, without warning, cutting across the sky like blades through silk. Cities below stirred awake, unaware that death was already circling. Radios crackled with static. Satellites blinked out one by one, and in the quiet streets of towns like Boulder and Asheville and Portland, people looked up and saw only strange lights. Beautiful, distant, harmless. They did not know they were being marked for death. But Maya knew. She stood deep beneath Mount Shasta, sweat stinging her eyes, hands raw from hours of prying at the Ashborn console. The red node, the main relay, was encased in hardened alloy pulsing with stolen elven energy. Every time she struck it with a rock, sparks flew and the countdown stuttered. Not stopped. Just slowed. 8 hours. 7. 6. She had no weapons. No magic. Just stubbornness and the memory of Lyra's voice saying, "Smash it." So she smashed. Above her, the mountain trembled. Not from the core. From something else. Something alive. Kale had landed on the peak, his wings spread wide against the storm clouds gathering overhead. He roared again, not in rage, but in signal. A call only certain ears could hear. And across the hidden corners of the world others answered. In the forests of Oregon, human hackers who had spent years chasing ghost signals suddenly found a new frequency, a dragon's pulse. They didn't understand it, but they followed it. In military bunkers and university labs, engineers rerouted power, patched old satellites, and opened emergency channels. Maya's name, once just a botanist in a quiet cabin, became a whisper in command centers from Denver to Tokyo. She's the link. Find her signal. Protect it. No one knew why. They just knew the sky was breaking, and someone had to hold it together. Meanwhile, in orbit, Lyra stood face to face with Cirrus on the bridge of the Ashbourne flagship. The core behind them flickered between red and blue, torn between destruction and truth. The images of Earth still played on the screens, soft, human moments that made Cirrus flinch every time she glanced at them. "You can still stop this," Lyra said. Cirrus gripped the edge of the console, her knuckles white. "They don't deserve mercy." "They don't know they're at war," Lyra said. "They think the lights in the sky are stars." A pause. Then Cirrus whispered, "Maybe that's the problem. They dream too much, and you stopped dreaming," Lyra said. "That's the real tragedy." Outside, the first human defense drones launched, not weapons, but signal beacons. Old satellites repurposed in a desperate gamble. They broadcasted one thing on every channel: Maya's voice. "This is not an attack. This is a test. If you can hear us, please respond with kindness." It was foolish, naive, impossible, but it was human. On the flagship, the audio feed crackled to life. Cirrus froze. A child's voice came through. "Hello, are you aliens? I drew you a picture." Cirrus turned away. Lyra saw her sister's shoulders shake, just once. That was all she needed. While Cirrus was distracted, Lyra lunged for the core override. But Cirrus was faster. She spun, drawing a blade forged from a dragon's fang. The tip pressed against Lyra's throat. "Don't make me do this," Cirrus said. "You already have," Lyra replied. Then Kyle struck. He had flown straight up through the atmosphere, ignoring the heat, the pressure, the laws of physics that should have torn him apart. He crashed into the ship's observation dome like a meteor, shattering the reinforced glass. Wind howled in. Alarms screamed. Cirrus stumbled back. Lyra dove for the console. Her fingers found the final sequence. The old binding chant, not spoken, but woven into the ship's code through touch. She poured her memories into it. Maya's quiet strength, the smell of rain on pine needles, the sound of human laughter echoing through a canyon. The core shuddered. Its light turned pure white. For a moment, the ship went still. Then Cirrus screamed and slammed her fist onto the emergency purge. The core would detonate in minutes. Lyra looked at her sister. "You don't have to die with it." "I'm already dead," Cirrus said. "I died the day we turned our backs on them." Lyra reached out. "Come home." Cirrus hesitated. Then she shook her head. "Go. Before I change my mind." Lyra ran. Kale met her at the breach, his side bleeding from the glass shards, his eyes burning with fury and fear. She climbed onto his back and they shot into the void just as the flagship's engines flared red. Below, the other Ashbourne ships wavered. Without the flagship's command, they drifted, confused. On Earth, Maya saw the change in the console. The countdown stopped at 3 hours, 17 minutes. She collapsed against the wall, gasping. But it wasn't over. The ships were still there, and the council was still watching. Back in the hollow moon, Elder Marin stood before the viewing sphere, her face grim. The fake signal had faded. The truth was bleeding through, but doubt remained. Then the sphere showed something new. Kyle, carrying Lyra, flying toward the nearest Ashbourne cruiser. Not to fight, to speak. Lyra opened her mind and shared everything. Not just images, not just sound, but feeling. The warmth of Maya's cabin, the weight of human grief, the fragile, fierce hope that lived in every act of kindness. The council watched, and for the first time in centuries they wept. On Earth, Maya activated the last of her plan. Using the Ashbourne console, she sent a single pulse, not of destruction, but of invitation. A frequency that matched the Elderwood's heartstone, a message written in the oldest language. "We see you." And somewhere in the hidden groves, the trees began to glow. The war was not over, but the truth had landed. And truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Not through screens or crystals or ancient scrying pools. They watched with their own eyes, standing together on the observation ledge of the hollow moon, robes fluttering in the silent vacuum. Below them, Earth turned, blue, green, fragile. And above it, the last Ashbourne cruiser hung motionless, its weapons dark, its engines cold. Lyra stood at the center of it all, still astride Kyle, her hands empty, her voice spent. She had given everything, her memories, her blood, her trust, and now she waited. Elder Marin stepped forward. Her comet. Ice staff glowed faintly, not with power but with sorrow. She looked at the image of Maya, still deep in the mountain, her face streaked with dirt and sweat, her eyes fixed on the sky as if she could feel them watching. "Stand down," Marin said, her voice carrying across every hidden channel, every elven outpost, every dragon's den from the rings of Saturn to the ice caves of Pluto. "All forces. Earth is not the enemy." The words rippled through the realms like a sigh after a long storm. On the Ashbourne cruiser, the crew lowered their weapons. Some wept. Others simply sat, exhausted by a war they never truly believed in. Only Cirrus remained on the bridge, alone now, staring at the planet below. She did not speak, did not move, but when the council's order came through, she closed her eyes and whispered, "So be it." Then she vanished into the ship's depths, leaving no trace behind. Lyra did not chase her. She knew her sister needed time, maybe centuries, maybe forever, but the door was open. That was enough. Kale turned toward Earth, wings beating slowly against the thin edge of space. They descended not as invaders, not as saviors, but as witnesses. Below, the world began to wake to what had almost been lost. Government scrambled. Scientists debated. Conspiracy forums exploded. But in quiet places, in backyards, in classrooms, in hospital waiting rooms, people simply looked up and wondered, because something had changed in the sky. The stars seemed brighter. The air felt lighter. And for the first time in human history, a silence fell that was not born of fear, but of awe. Maya climbed out of the mountain 3 days later. The entrance sealed behind her, the runes fading back into stone. She carried nothing but her satchel and a small seedling she had taken from the chamber, a strange silver sprout that glowed faintly in the dark. At the base of the trail, Lyra waited. They did not hug. They did not speak at first. They just stood there, two women from different worlds, breathing the same air, watching the same sunrise. "You came back," Maya said finally. Lyra smiled. "You told me to." Kale lay nearby, curled around a boulder, his scales still healing. He opened one golden eye and gave a soft rumble. Maya walked over and placed a hand on his snout. He did not flinch. In the weeks that followed, the council sent envoys, not warriors, but healers, archivists, listeners. They appeared in remote places, always at dusk, always alone. They spoke little. They asked questions. They listened more. And Maya became their bridge. She opened her cabin to them, shared her food, taught them about soil, seasons, and the quiet rhythm of human life. In return, they showed her the songs of the stars, the language of trees, the way dragons dream. Lyra stayed with her, not as a guardian, not as a spy, just as a friend. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies blink in the tall grass, Maya asked, "What happens now?" Lyra looked at the sky. "Now we learn, we listen, we try. And if they come back the Ashbourne, then we meet them with open hands, not closed fists," Lyra said. Maya nodded. "That sounds like a start." Far away, in the Elderwood, the Heartstone pulsed with a new rhythm, one that echoed the beat of human hearts. The veil was not gone, but it was thinner, more like a curtain than a wall, and sometimes, in the deepest part of the night, children would swear they saw a black dragon flying beside the moon, its scales shimmering with violet and green, and on its back a woman with silver-threaded hair watching over the world she had almost lost. The council never spoke of the war again, but they changed. They allowed small things, seeds shared with human botanists, old songs recorded by curious linguists, warnings sent through encrypted channels when solar flares threatened power grids. It was not peace. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something real. One morning, Maya planted the silver seedling in her garden. By noon, it had grown 3 feet tall, its leaves humming softly in the breeze. Lyra stood beside her, silent. "You think it'll survive here?" Maya asked. Lyra placed a hand on the bark. "It already has." And as the wind moved through the trees, Carrying the scent of pine and distant rain, the two women stood together, neither elf nor human alone, but something new, something possible. The war was over, but the alliance had just begun.